Oh, don't mind me. I'm just taking this moment in before the internet just randomly decides that they hated this movie like they did with Spider-Man. Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I'm an artist and a film enthusiast. I have drawn some art and I would like to enthuse about some film. Today we are talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. It's not Deadpool 3, but it's basically Deadpool 3. I'm going to start off with a bunch of non-spoiler thoughts, and then we're going to dive into my spoiler thoughts, and I will give you a full warning, I promise you. If you haven't seen the movie, don't go away quite yet. Although maybe you can. I mean, do what you want, but just, if you want to see this video but you haven't seen it, you get what I'm saying. I'm not going to bury the lead here. Overall, this is a fantastic film. It is so much fun. It's crazy funny. It's got great action, solid choreography. It's across the board. It's just really good. I'll get into this later, but much like the other two Deadpool movies, the heart of this film is rock solid. I think this is one of the most tender-hearted, emotional superhero movies we've gotten in a really long time, and that makes me extremely happy. And while I don't think it's perfect, there are definitely some issues that I have. It might be my favorite. It probably is. I think it is my favorite Deadpool movie. This just does so much. It balances so much, and in such a clever, creative, fun, entertaining way. I couldn't be happier with it, even though there are a couple of things that I do have an issue with. Speaking of issues, one of the biggest problems that this movie has is some of the CGI is, I'll be honest, not great. There are some pretty standout, not awesome, rubbery CGI moments in this movie. And that is kind of a bummer, I'm not gonna lie. But I also understand why. There's a lot going on. They have a lot packed into this movie. So much of this needs CGI, and they clearly used it in the moments that were more important and bigger. And then some of the other moments, they skimped a little bit. And I've put up with far worse CGI in a Marvel movie. I'm looking at you, third act of Black Panther. So it's not a huge detriment to the movie, but it does take you out of it in some moments. I will say there's a kind of negative and a positive to this movie, which is it is doing so much. There is so much in this movie. And I think that's a positive and a negative. There's some really great elements to that, but also there are some moments that you're like, how long is this? What are we doing here? There are some moments that I had a full thought of, I'm glad that I'm seeing this twice this weekend because I kind of need to take another bite at that apple. A lot to take in. And that can be kind of overstimulating, but it can also be really good. Kind of a mixed bag. Part of that, I think, is that it's an R-rated movie, and it sure is an R-rated movie. I'm very glad because I was worried that, R-rated MCU might just be MCU, but they say the F word some more. It's not that. There's a lot in this movie that they would not get away with in other movies, and I'm very happy about that. It's not anything super sexual or anything like that. It is a lot of language and so much just incredible gore. The action in this movie is just as good as the other Deadpool movies and way gorier than anything we've seen in the MCU. So overall, I think that this is a fantastic movie. It's got so much going on, some good, some bad, and it's just, you kind of have to take it for what it is. I am happy to say that I don't think there's going to be a lot of super disappointed people. That was the thing I was worried about, especially when people were kind of hyping up. I think I was a little worried that it was going to be all cameos and just a wall-to-wall, oh, look at that thing, and shaking the keys at you, showing you something shiny like you're a crow. There is some of that, don't get me wrong, but I think that this movie does a good job having an actual story, real characters, an arc for Deadpool, which I'm ridiculously happy about. It just does a really good job being an actual movie. I had a friend who saw it before I did, and that was the thing I texted them. I said, does it feel like a movie? And they said, yeah, this is a movie that feels like a movie, which seems like such an arbitrary thing, but it really does, and that means a lot to me. So there's my non-spoiler thoughts. Feel free to hop away. Before we get into spoilers, I want to take a little moment to talk about our sponsor. It's me. I'm the sponsor again. Please read my comic, Edge of Border Town, on my website, johnbonart.com. It is 100% free. Please do it. Also, I have a Patreon that I'm starting to plug, kind of. You should probably know what my username is or whatever that is. It's a good segment, John. Good ad read. Solid ad. It's my name, John Bonjour. I'm really glad that I took the time for that. Yeah, please read my comic, and if you have a little extra cash, it really helps to get some backers. But, I couldn't donate to me. I don't have the extra cash, so I'm not going to judge you if you don't or don't want to, or if you don't think it's worth it. I get that. Let's jump into some spoilers before I have a meltdown. I'm just going to get them out of the way first. The cameos, there's so many of them, and honestly, all of them I thought worked really, really well. I was kind of worried that this was going to be just a cameo fest, and we were going to do the same thing we did with X-Force, but with, a bunch of random people from the Fox X-Men universe. I'm really glad that they didn't do that. I like that they didn't use them as a joke. They used them as actual characters. This whole movie, and I think they make this clear with the end credits reel, this whole movie is a love letter to the Fox universe. So many random X-Men characters and just general Fox characters show up in the background and throughout the movie. You know, Azazel, Toad, you get Pyro. All these characters coming back to being played by the actual people, and they're not just used as jokes or gimmicks. They're just characters, and I'm so happy. That was not what I was expecting. That the whole multiverse thing has been a really mixed bag in terms of whether or not we treat these people as people or if they're treated as just like nerd bait. I'm so happy that they treat them as actual characters. Specifically, the main, I think the main four cameos that I think are probably the most important. Jennifer Garner's Elektra, Wesley Snipes coming back as Blade, which is kind of unhinged. Daphne Keane is back as Laura, or X-23. And then Channing Tatum as Gambit, who's my favorite part of this movie. There's something so beautiful about the meta-narrative of how Channing Tatum was supposed to be Gambit, but he just never got the chance to. And then him coming in, being the worst possible Gambit. And then the added layer of he so clearly just wants to be somebody. It's so beautiful, and it's so funny. There was not a single line that didn't have me dying from him. Jennifer Garner, by the way, is also very fun. She kind of plays the straight man of the group, so I don't know that you can really count her as that, but she does have a great line about Daredevil being dead, and she's perfectly fine with it. Wesley Snipes is back. He probably has the worst line, in my opinion, in the movie, which is he does the whole, some motherfuckers are always trying to skate uphill thing, but he does it again, and it's the most... it's fan service-y, kind of, It was a moment for me that I think felt kind of weird, but otherwise, I mean, it's nice to see him back. It's nice that he's Blade. There is a great line that he has about being the only Blade, and that he's always going to be the only Blade, and then Deadpool just barrels the camera and doesn't say anything. My point is that they treat these people, like characters that have a purpose. I love that they treat this as the swan song, the end of the Fox movies. They do that in narrative and out of narrative. There's a certain reverence to these characters, people that care about them, but also I think that this is just an acknowledgement that, hey, somebody cared about these characters outside of the movies, outside of the fiction of the film. These are characters that we care about, that we kind of have grown up with. And it's nice to see, except Gambit, and it's nice to see them getting their due. It's nice to see them getting a chance to be something and be in this thing that's bigger than themselves. It's all honestly really touching, and I think they do a great job of that. To that point, I think the villains are set up to be really solid antagonists for this movie. You get Mr. Paradox, played by Matthew McFadden, who is just sort of a shithead. It's interesting because they set this movie up as the TVA recruits Deadpool, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting concept, but what a weird choice to make. I like that this is just a branch of the TVA that's kind of hiding from what the TVA is actually doing, recruiting Deadpool in a really nefarious manner. I like that the TVA isn't just back to being normal. It's like there's still corruption, there's still issues, things that are going on that shouldn't be happening. It's fun to see that, and it makes way more sense that they would recruit Deadpool. That kind of justifies this movie in a very different way. Our other villain, played by Emma Corrin, is Cassandra Nova, and she is fantastic. She's the twin sister of Charles Xavier, and she's a disgusting freak. I love every second that she's in this movie. She's a really solid villain, somebody you'd love to hate, but also she just, her power set is so interesting and gross. There's several bits where she reaches into somebody's mind and, reaches into somebody's mind, and that effect is so gnarly. Anytime she would go around the eye and it would kind of bulge out. It's horrible. It's awful to look at, and I think they did a really great job making it that, because it's supposed to feel gross. She also just plays a character that's really interesting to me. She's a bad person, doesn't quite know why she's a bad person, but she's just evil and broken, and she continues to be throughout the whole movie. I like that there's not some understandable, oh, I get why you would be evil. She's just a truly bad person, and we need a lot more of that in villains. It's nice to see just a bad villain who does bad villain things. Also another cameo I forgot about. Chris Evans comes back as Johnny Storm. Incredible reveal. They do a great job with that. It's a joke that you kind of heard passed around. Oh, what if he comes back, but then he's Johnny Storm and not Captain America? Did not think they were going to do it. love that they did it. It really worked quite well, and it was fun to see him play that character one more time. It was a great Johnny Storm, and I think that this is not maybe the most tactful send-off for him, but a really fun one. I do like that the MCU now has this tradition of killing off multiverse variants of the Fantastic Four in the most disgusting and horrible ways. I need them to do all four of them in different ways. Another swath of cameos, and one of the things that I was talking about them including a lot in this movie and that being a good and bad thing, I think this is a perfect example of it being a good and a bad thing. The Deadpool Corps. There's hundreds of Deadpools, and on the one hand, it's really fun to see. You get some really very quick cameos. I'm relatively confident that was Matthew McConaughey as the cowboy Deadpool. Definitely Blake Lively as Lady Deadpool. I like that they don't use those as like, oh, and now I'm going to take my mask off and it's me, Blake Lively. Like, they have them playing the actual characters, which is really fun. Kid Pool's also in this. I think he's played by the kid from Adam Project. That's fun. I appreciate that they weren't some major plot line throughout the movie. They were referenced once, and then they show up at the end, and there's that incredible, long take fight sequence that is probably the best sequence in the movie. I will say, having them all show up and come out of a portal, there was something a little bit off about it. There was something that just didn't quite feel right, and I think it was because this whole movie, and I'll get to this in a second, but the whole point of this movie is that Deadpool is trying to be something. He's trying to be more important than he is, trying to be a part of something important. And I think they treat him as the lowest version of Deadpool for the whole movie. Like, he's at rock bottom, he's working his way back up, and he has to become important and mean something. And then they introduce all of these different Deadpools that are all less than him. Like, they just matter less than him. It's not like an inherently bad thing. I just think it pokes at their premise, at their story in a way that wasn't really intended. And it just feels a little bit strange. That said, it is very fun to see Headpool flying around. There's a part of me that wants to just dismiss all of this because it was just fun to watch as a Deadpool fan, and it really was. But I also think they work so hard to make this story something important. And so if you're going to do that, you also have to, make sure that your story fits. We're wrapping it up, I promise. Wolverine, we got to talk about Wolverine. Hugh Jackman is amazing. We know this. He's an incredible actor. He carries the fun sequences really well. He's still got the action, which is, it's so good. It's so beautiful. The couple of fights that Deadpool and Wolverine have are incredible. They're ridiculous. They fight in very different styles. They keep Deadpool's just crazy launching himself at people. I think that's so good. I love that they do that. Wolverine action has never looked better. This is the best depiction of the Wolverine that we've gotten. I don't know if it's the best depiction of Logan. There's a huge debate to be had there, but it's definitely the best depiction of Wolverine, without question. His character arc is really solid, and I like the way that his and Deadpool's kind of mirror each other. They both are people who, for different reasons, are at rock bottom. Deadpool because he got rejected, Wolverine because he, failed his entire team and universe. So it's interesting to see them both try to become something bigger, where Deadpool is trying to actively be more important, become bigger, do something more important to save Vanessa and his universe, and he's got his own arc going that I really do think is beautiful. But the true heart of this movie, I think, is in Wolverine this time. Deadpool's is great, but Wolverine's is so much deeper and stronger. It's about becoming somebody that you didn't want to be and then coming back from that. It's about redemption. It's an arc that I think just would fail completely if we didn't have X-23 involved, and if we didn't already know her relationship with Wolverine, and if all of these many, many pieces didn't all come together in this exact way, I think the arc would have failed, and honestly, I think so much of this would have just been kind of pointless and bad if that heart didn't come through. The true heart of this movie is Deadpool and Wolverine kind of becoming friends, but really both of them dealing with their pasts, dealing with becoming stagnant for Deadpool and becoming, a nightmare for Wolverine. It's about them choosing to become something more, to be something that they could be. And I think that follows through even with the random characters that show up. Like, their whole point is that they want an end. They want a solid, definitive, good end. I think that's beautiful. They do a really good job making that something important and something that feels like an actual story. All that to say, Deadpool and Wolverine is a really great movie. It's one of my favorite things the MCU has produced in a really long time. The comedy stands up. I think the fourth wall breaks won't be too much for people. I don't think they're going to take away the stakes of the movie, but they will be fun. They're fun little things, and they're not things that are going to age poorly. I think that this is just an incredibly well done film with a great heart. It fits into the Deadpool franchise, it fits into the X-Men, and it fits into the MCU somehow. And that is so impressive to me. I'm glad this movie exists. I highly recommend seeing it in theaters. It's such a fun time. Thank you for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, comics, TV shows, Deadpool, the Deadpool core, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, or comment down below what you'd like me to review next. Or do none of those things because I am not your dad. One of the things that I really appreciate about this movie is